Thanks for tuning in to The Real Deal Show, brought to you by ebodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards. Hey folks, Jay Reale here with The Real Deal Show, and I am on location at Waco Surf in Waco, Texas. This is, in my opinion, it's the best wave pool in the world. We love this place. This is our 4th time doing the Texas Tube Tour, our 7th time visiting Waco Surf. We absolutely love this place, and we love to share it with friends. And this friend of mine, I have known for the better part of, I'm going to do the math here, 42 years since I met you, Tony. Welcome
so awesome,
to The Real Deal Show. I'm so stoked to have you.
I'm stoked to be here with you.
Yeah, so welcome to The Real Deal Show. So if you don't know what The Real Deal Show is, Tony, it's basically, it's my podcast. We have conversations, right? And I really wanted to get you on board here because, I'll go back 42 years ago. You had an instrumental part in my early days as a bodyboarder, and I'll just share that story as I've done in a previous show real quickly. And that was that I was a young kid, 16 years old, in Ocean City, Maryland in 1980. And Tony and some other pro bodyboarders from Southern California came through my hometown, Ocean City, Maryland, and did a demo. And I went down, the waves were really good that day. And Tony and these other guys were blowing my mind what they were doing on bodyboards. I had never seen anybody do the kind of things they were doing on bodyboards. Do you remember that event, 1980?
Totally.
You do?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What's your memory of that event back in 1980?
I remember I didn't even really know where Ocean, or I didn't even know where Maryland was. Really.
Typical Californian.
I thought maybe it was in a whole different part of the country. So then I didn't understand how it had a beach, and then the fact that it was up so high on the Atlantic coast, I thought, oh my gosh, that's like equivalent to Oregon or San Francisco or something. So it's like, that doesn't seem like much fun to go there. But then when we went there, I realized that the East Coast has warm water that comes up high, and then they have sandy beaches, and so it's like, wow, this is rad here. And the waves were really good, and it was, I just remember it was it was sandy beach break barrels, almost like Zuma Beach in California. And I remember even before the event, I went out, like when everyone was having breakfast, I went out and rode some of the waves, like right at sunrise, because I'm like, these waves are just too good to pass up. And we're going to be, showing people and demonstrating and trying to help other people ride, but I wanted to catch some ahead of time, so I did that. I was the early bird. Yeah,
it was like the best swell we had that entire summer. It was an epic July day, glassy conditions, and good surf, actually pumping surf that day. But let's rewind a little bit. That was 1980, but when did you start riding bodyboards? Let's go back.
Right. I graduated from high school in 1976, and right after, like within 2 weeks after graduating, I was working for the Denault's hardware store, and they were selling boogie boards. Yep. And so Steve Denault, one of the owners, he said, Tony, you should really get one of these and come down to T Street by my house and go riding. The people are having a lot of fun on them. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't really know about those things at all. And he just said, well, he just pressed me to do it. And so I did it. And so I bought it like on the 4th of July weekend in 1976. Okay. And then the very first time I went out at T Street, and I'm like, okay, I love this beach. I had never been there before, and I love this vehicle to ride the waves on. So it's like, okay, I'm just hooked, fully hooked. Hook, line, and sinker.
Now, hooked. So then you started. Obviously, you realized that you had an affinity for the bodyboard, obviously, but when did you realize you had the skill to take it to the competition side of things?
Yeah.
It was all brand new. Boogie boards were invented in 1971. So competitive bodyboarding, or boogie boarding as we called it then, was new.
Yeah.
What prompted you to get into that side of things?
Well, I just loved going there and riding in the first place. So I would go to T Street whenever I could, go riding, I'm like, okay, every day riding this board is a blast. This is like so much fun. It as far as like a cost basis, you just have to drive down to the beach and go.
Yeah.
So it isn't like having to go on a vacation or anything. So I could do it all the time. After I had been doing it just for a few months, they had a contest down in Oceanside, and I'm like, oh, I want to go to that. And because I was older, because I'd already graduated from high school, there were a lot of people that were like 6 years old, 8 years old, because it was friendly for all ages.
Sure.
And so I got stuck in the like adults, the over 18 group, and yet I was still a brand new novice at riding it. Well, if I remember right, I finished third place behind Bobby Zabad and Joey Gibbs, who are both the team riders for Maury Boogie. And they're like, who is this Tony Prince guy?
Who is this guy?
And I'm like, I just love this thing. And so Patty Serrano, who is the head of marketing, she's like, this guy is enthusiastic about boogie boarding. I got to take him out and do some events with him. And so that's what. So her and I did a bunch of things together, including that one that we met you.
So she just said, "Hey, Tony, I love your enthusiasm for the sport. I want to take you on tour, so you can share the stoke."
Right, exactly.
And you went to the East Coast. You went to like New England, and you went down.
We went to like
Maryland,
Cocoa Beach and Florida, and then we went up the coast, and then she would come by and grab me, and we would go to like department stores or like places that were selling the boogie board.
Yeah, right.
And we wouldn't have anything to like any materials or anything, so they would just she would just say, yeah, Tony rides it, look how stoked he is. And I would just be telling people, this is really good, I would just
exactly
go
what
crazy. Yeah, right. And she would be like, we'd have like a slide projector, and there would be like 2 slides, that they had, and they would just flip back and forth between those 2.
Wow.
And just like back and forth, so 2 pictures, because we didn't have any like multimedia like you would have today. But
right.
I really enjoyed being around Patty Serrano, because she was also totally stoked about boogie boards, and
yes.
and that's why she liked being around me. So we were just like 2 peas in a pod, just feeding off of each other. And so whenever we would be around people, they would be like, God, these people are having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the way you and Vicky are.
Well, I have exactly the same story, but originally with Patty, but eventually with Mary Lee Christensen.
Mm-hmm.
I would show up at the events when they came to Maryland, and she saw how stoked I was, and then I got on the same program you did, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, our stories kind of mirror each other in that respect in the early days. But so take us through where you went from that point. I mean, you did the East Coast tours with Patty. Did you get paid to bodyboard, or did you just get free boogie boards?
Right. Yeah. In the early days, mostly I would get free. I would win stuff for winning contests, but then in addition to that, I have a love for photography. So I love to shoot pictures of either nature or usually nature, but also the boogie boarding. So I would keep asking the people at Maury Boogie, hey, I got some good pictures of like Chris Powers or Scott Harrison or somebody, and why don't you use these for one of your ads? And they're like, oh, they're not good enough. But after I was just stoked about shooting pictures, just like I was stoked about writing. So I kept doing it. Okay, these pictures are good enough. Okay, we can't pay you, but we can give you more boogie boards like the ones that we were giving you for winning the contest. So I not only didn't get paid for writing, I didn't even get paid for doing the photos. I was like, that's okay, just give me the boogies, give me the fins, give me the Doyles. Yes. I don't care, anything. I'm stoked on all of this stuff. I don't have to get paid money, because I'm just getting paid in stoke.
Now,
that's what I got paid in.
Speaking of that stoke, did you pass that along to your brother Tom, who's also a super accomplished bodybuilder?
Oh yeah,
and
by
former
far.
pro? I mean, were you responsible for that?
No, I would not say I was responsible for it, because he's really responsible for his own just excelling beyond. I guess he could look at what I could do, and he could say I could probably do double that good. And he was he did extremely well.
What's the age difference between you and
9
Tom?
years.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So by the time he was just getting into doing it, he was in his as a teenager. I was already like over 20 by that time, and so I was in a whole different division, and he excelled really quickly, and he also had a huge amount of stoke for the sport, and so Madrid grabbed him and said, we want you to be the team captain for their boards, and all the people that worked with my brother can just look back and just say he was like the best person to work with. So much stoke and so much skill, and then he like you continued to just get better and better and better with age, like fine wine. and so he's out here with you today, just both of them ripping as good as any young kid could do, and even as you get older. That's amazing.
We're at our Texas Tube Tour event, and his brother Tom this is his second time here, and he has the stoke still. You have the stoke still. And we're gonna put up, if we can get them in time for this airing, we're gonna put up a couple of Tony's photos. Tony was claiming, now I heard you claim out in the water, best photos you've ever gotten. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and believe me, I went through so many submissions for Maury Boogie that said, these aren't good enough, these aren't good enough. If I could have had the pictures I shot today, and hopefully you'll be able to see some of them, that would have been like cover photo, cover photo, cover photo.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And
that's my prediction. We'll see. We'll see if you believe it when it happens, when I show them to you.
I'm loving this because, what I've found, at least in our industry now, is that the kind of one of our biggest niches at ebodyboarding.com and in the sport in general is a lot of the older guys are returning to the sport. We call them board-agains, thanks to Gianna Simonelli, who coined that phrase. She, said, hey, all these older guys, they're like board-agains. COVID sort of brought it out, and they're coming back to the sport. But some of us, like Tom and myself, we never left, right?
And
but
Vicky.
Did you leave the sport for a while?
Oh, yeah, a long time.
Tell us about that. What did you do during that hiatus?
I worked as a health and life insurance manager for the last 30 years. And so at some parts of that time, I was so busy, I just didn't have time to go boogie boarding. It was really rare. I would just go a couple of times a year.
Wow, okay.
For decades of time. And then as whenever there was time available, then it wasn't that I lost the stoke for it ever. It's just that I just didn't have time for it with raising a family and everything. And then now that I have a little bit more time, then it's like, okay, let's just go do it again.
Yeah, you've gotten back into it. We're seeing Tony out in the water. A lot more than we did during that hiatus, obviously. And it's so cool to see you back out there. And some of your contemporaries are, getting out there, going on trips. You guys just came back from Cabo with
Joe
Roger
Evans,
Waller and Joe Evans. And
Scott Evans and Chris Powers.
Yeah, and Chris Powers
and
is
Keith
here
Sasaki.
at our event here, and Keith Sasaki. So I just love it that our bodyboarding population is aging so well, and we're still carrying that stoke for this sport into our later years. But at the same time, we love to see the young kids getting into the sport. You know?
Of course.
It's to keep the sport alive and well, we need to sort of nourish that younger generation to keep going too. So that's obviously a very important part.
Yeah, they have a lot of things to do that we didn't have to do because they have virtual reality games and all kinds of different stuff to distract them. But if you can get, I bet if you took any teenager in America and you took them to this wave pool and let us do a demo with them on a boogie board, they would probably be stoked for the rest of their life. That's all they just need is an introduction.
I agree. So let's keep that going to you older bodyboarders. Try to nurture the young kids, if it's your own kid or just young kids, to keep the sport going, man. We need that injection of youthful exuberance in the sport. Okay, let's go back to you. I want to ask you a couple poignant questions here about your bodyboarding. What did you ever go on any bodyboarding trips, and if so, what was your favorite one?
Well, my very first one was in at the December of 1977. Patty Serrano asked Tom Morey if she could bring me to Hawaii for their trip that they were going to have, that had Dale Dobson riding the Doyle, Bobby Zabad and Joey Gibbs, the two people that I had competed against the year before, were the pro riders for the, and actually employees of Morey Boogie. So it was almost all employees except for myself and Dale Dobson were the only two people, and he was a professional surfer. So it's like I'm really the lucky one that, got to just go in someone's suitcase. It's like, okay, let's just bring Tony along. He's small.
No, man.
And so we get there, and I had never been to Hawaii before, and we're riding really flexible boogie boards, the kit boards, and it was I'd never ridden waves that big before, just small, California surf, and so it was really just like eye-opening. But I was stoked to go there. They had a contest that year at Haleiwa.
Yeah.
And the Hawaiians were really ripping, and so it was pretty obvious that the boogie boards were going to be super popular in Hawaii because people were ripping there on them. They seemed to work really good in those waves. The people could go really fast because the waves had a lot of power.
Yep.
But like we went to Makaha, and I rode. I had so much fun there. We went to Waimea Bay, and I'm like, no, there's just no way I'm going to ride these waves. And Joey Gibbs goes, no, okay, you just shoot pictures, Tony. I'll go out and ride.
Well, Joey was a charger, man.
Yeah, whew. And
I think I was there that year. It was '83, I think, winter of '83, '84. Right, the Haleiwa Morey International Contest.
Yeah, this was the very first one. It was in '77.
Oh, got it. Way before.
Yeah,
me.
December of '77.
Got it. I was 11 years old. No, 14 years old then. But yes, wow. So we're going back now. People always want to know this question, and so I'll ask it. Worst wipeout that you can ever remember? Do you remember any horrible wipeouts?
I do remember it wasn't necessarily on a boogie board. I won a trip with the insurance company that I was managing an office for to Acapulco. Ooh. And I had never been there to mainland Mexico either. So we're staying at the Princess Hotel, I think is what it was.
Okay.
And so I go down, and there's these waves are breaking, really nice waves, kind of like the Maryland at the time when I met you, right? And so it's like I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get out there. So I go over to the little shack that they would rent stuff, and I'm like, yeah, do you have some boogie boards? No, we don't even know what that is or whatever. And but we can just give you a surfboard. Okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't even surf, but okay, I'll try that. And I got pitched over the falls, and as I went to dive down, the water was only about 2 feet deep, and I just remember just doing a sailor dive,
face
right into the sand. It was like okay, that's how people wind up in a wheelchair. Get the surfboard off my body and immediately, and I'm not ever going to go out in a beach break, that kind of shallow beach break. I'm not ever going to go out on a surfboard in areas like that. And so then for the whole rest of my life, I've gone to those types of breaks with a boogie board, and I've never got hurt at all or wiped out really bad at all.
Right.
So it's like, hello.
I know. When I was in my early days with Morey, I would do interviews, and I'd always, my 4 buzzwords were soft, safe, flexible, and fun. Mm-hmm. And that's true about the bodyboard. Obviously, the modern boards aren't as flexible as the early ones that you guys rode in the early days, but it is soft, it is safe relative to surfing.
Yeah.
It is somewhat flexible, and it's obviously fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, which leads us to this. So we're at Texas Tube Tour 2022. By the way, folks, if you ever want to book Texas Tube Tour with us or any of our other trips, go to the bottom of the website, click on bodyboarding travel. I will put a link right up here at the top of your screen right now. if you want to click and get on one of our trips. I got to give a plug for the trips, but
Sure.
Tony and his brother Tom are here, and this is an artificial wave. And is this your first ever wave pool experience?
It is, absolutely. I never even rode the flow ride or anything.
Yeah,
so
which is amazing to me, because I mean, you know, there were wave pools like Big Surf in Arizona was probably the first that I ever know of. That was in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And you've never ridden a wave pool. What's your take on this place?
Yeah,
I mean, your opinion.
It's extremely rewarding to ride here because it's predictable, and it's also, the crowd is predictable. So you can take turns riding waves instead of normally out in the ocean. You know, you would have to kind of fight to get to your waves. Yeah. And the other thing is that you are guaranteed that there will be waves the day that you arrive. And a lot of surf trips result in, part of the fun of a surf trip is you don't know if the waves are going to be any good or not, and then you just find something else to get stoked about if they aren't. But here you're guaranteed that the waves are going to be good every day. So
the good thing I think about this, not to go too far into the promotion of Texas Tube Tour, is that we have, you know, a lot of people that are limited on time. Maybe they have 2-3 days and they got to get back to work or to school. And this event that we do is exactly what you said. It's guaranteed wave. So it's a surf trip where there's no rolling the dice. There's no, boy, I hope there's a swell in the 2-3 days we're there. You're guaranteed waves, and everyone is guaranteed the same amount of waves. There's going to be barrels. If you want to get barreled, you can. So everyone has the same opportunity. Sometimes you go on a surf trip, let's say for a week, and you spend a bunch of money and get on flights and travel long distances, and you'll be there and you'll get skunked.
Yeah.
There'll be no swell, or the wind will be wrong, or maybe it is good and your buddy gets all the good ones and you kind of miss out, but not here, right?
Yeah, this is like paying for guaranteed success. You will absolutely catch waves. You'll absolutely have a blast. There's nobody here that was here today that doesn't think that this is the most awesome thing ever, and that we live at a time where you could do something like this.
Yes.
Because when Tom Morey invented the bodyboard or the boogie board, there was no thought that at some point a bunch of people decades later would be able to get together and go have fun, at an artificially created wave.
Which brings me to my next question. You know, when you started in the 70s doing this sport, could you ever have imagined what people are doing on these boards in 2022? The flips, the spins, the giant waves. Did you think that was going to be the progression?
No, because it didn't seem like that was even going to ever be possible. The boards were more flexible and made to just ride really easily in the wave. Like just stay in the middle of the wave all the time. Yeah. But now the boards are made a little different, so they go much, much faster. And with that kind of speed, then of course you can people can start doing things that are a lot. You can get it in the air and stuff if you have that kind of speed. But we didn't have the original boards would never go fast enough to do that.
Right. Yeah. Now, when you, just to back up real quick, when you were involved with the Morey Boogie Company, did you have a contract, like a written contract, or was it all just sort of like, hey, come on, we're going to the East Coast for
Right. Well, since I really never got paid any money, they didn't really have to contract me for anything. They would just say, do you want to come? And I would go, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Sure, I would do it. The thing about having something that you're really stoked about is the payment is to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Just to experience it.
Right.
It's a total stoke. So I love, shooting pictures. So I shoot pictures, a lot of times.
Yes. And by the way, incredible pictures. If you follow this guy on Facebook, you'll see his pictures. Even Instagram, your Facebook is just your name, right? Tony Prince. And then your Instagram is tonyprince.zenfolio.
Yeah. Oh, because that's what my website is.
Amazing photos of sessions we've had at T Street, trips you've taken, like the one you just took to Cabo. This guy, what better guy to take pictures of bodyboarders than a guy who's been doing it for, I don't know, 45, 50 years. So check him out online. But
yeah, and it's especially fun to go on trips with people that are equally stoked.
Yes.
Like when we just went to Mexico a couple weeks ago, and Joe Evans was there. He was one of the people that I met really early on, and he's fantastic. And Chris Powers and Keith Sasaki and Mike Stewart, fortunately for me, came and lived with me one summer in San Clemente early on, and so I got to ride with them, and it's like, oh my gosh, I could just see that it's like, okay, that was the time when I just said, okay, these people are going fast. They're extremely good riding.
Well, what's cool is, your generation, first generation ever of top level riders are in their 60s now, and pushing those limits, So I'm sort of the generation after you. I'm still in my 50s.
Right, not like my brother.
Yeah, I mean, and we're taking that level to an older age. And surfing is doing the same. Obviously, you got Slater, who's now 50. Guys like Michael Ho, who's in his early 60s, still charging pipeline and backdoor.
Yeah.
So I love to see this progression where older surfers, older bodyboarders are taking the sport making it a life sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like golf is a life sport. Now bodyboarding can be a life sport because it's a safer alternative, you can say, than surfing. You don't have the hard board and the skegs and the pointy nose and all that. So, it's so encouraging to watch guys like yourself and your generation, Joe Evans, Scott Evans, Roger Wall, and Chris Powers, taking it and still ripping. I mean, Chris Powers at this event was blowing my mind. He was getting sick barrels coming out after the spit. We'll have a video on this event. I'll try to link it above if it's available by the time I post this. If not,
one of the pictures I got today was of Chris Powers in the barrel, hands up like that, no hands. Look, Ma, no hands. That's one of the best pictures I've ever taken in my life. I hope.
Love it, man. So as we wrap this up, Tony, I just want to give you a chance. Anyone you want to thank for your 50-year career?
Well, I want to thank all the people that I got to meet and become lifelong friends with, like Mike Lambrisi and Joe Evans and Scott and Roger and Chris Powers. And I just love the fact that my brother is so exceptional at this, and he just can always drag me back in. Come on. It's you're stoked on this. Let's go do it.
Yes.
I just think that that's awesome. But I think that there's probably some people out there that used to be totally stoked on bodyboarding, and then they like how I did in the middle. They had to take a break because of family or work or whatever.
Yep.
And so hopefully, we can inspire them to say, okay, I don't care that I'm 50 or 60 years old or 70. It's like, okay, let's just get back out there and go do it, because there's people here that are in their 60s and they had a blast today too.
Sure. 100% for sure. So Tony, I mean, this guy's the poster child for getting back into it, the board again movement, as I call it. So we're stoked on that crew. And Tony, man, it's been a pleasure to be a friend of yours since 1980. You're such a big influence on my early years, and just love your stoke to this day. We're stoked to have you here at this event, but just involved and down there shooting when we're out there surfing sometimes. Man, some of my favorite photos that I've ever had of myself in recent years were ones that you took.
That's awesome. I'm totally stoked on that. I'm so stoked about just being friends with you and Vicky, because it's like I get to be around people that share my stoke and that do it actually for their job. So instead of like me, that I had to split my stoke between two different things, you're just like get to be 100% all in, which is just, I mean, I feel honored to be your close friend, and because you and Vicky have done so much for the sport and still do.
The feeling is mutual. So with that said, I will wrap up this episode of The Real Deal Show, folks. Thank you so much to Tony Prince. One more handshake for you. It's never enough.
Thank you, Jay.
And thanks for watching, folks. If you watched on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. give us the thumbs up and give some comments for Tony. He is a legend in this sport, one of the OGs. That term is thrown around loosely a lot, but this guy truly embodies that. And if you listen on the audio podcast, thanks for listening during your workout or whatever it is you do while you listen to podcasts. And folks, as always, we'll see you in the surf.